Today we're going to do a little review of Adobe Illustrator and how to use the shape tool. So as you can see, I already have my document open and saved with my last name and the name of the project. The first thing I'm going to do is I want to come down and find the shape tool. So if I follow my toolbar down, it looks like a rectangle. So when I click on it, I have options of a rectangle tool, rounded rectangle tool, ellipse tool, polygon tool, star tool, and flare tool. If I go out to this little arrow on the end and release, I now have my loose toolbar and I can pull out whatever I need. For each of these shapes, I'm going to go ahead and make one of each. So I have my regular rectangle, my rounded rectangle, my ellipse. And remember, if I hold down Shift, I will get a proportional shape. With the polygon tool, it's always going to start off with a hexagon. If I want to make a triangle, I would double click, and where it says 6, I'll bring it down to 3 and click OK. If I need to move any of these shapes at any time, I want to use my selection tool. I can click on the shape to select that shape and move it around. You may notice that some of my shapes have extra little circles in the center. I just have a different version of this at home. Similarly to the triangle, when I use the star tool, I can click and create that star, or I can double click and I can change the number of points. So once I have those, when I want to start changing colors, let's just start with one shape. I'm going to get my selection tool, which was the black arrow. Select the shape that I want to change, and then I want to focus on my fill and my stroke. The fill is the solid square. The stroke is the square that looks like a frame. So whichever one is on top is the one that I'm going to be dealing with. So right now, because the stroke is on top, that would be the thing that I want to change. I would like to change the fill, so I'm going to click on the white square. Notice we see all of that. Underneath we have options. We have color, gradient, and none. So if I wanted no fill and I just wanted the stroke, I could click none. If I wanted a gradient, I could click that. We'll get into that in a second. If I want to change the color, I'm going to double click in that fill. It opens up a separate window. I can go up or down the slider, choose whatever color I want, click in there, and then select OK. And it will change the color inside. Now, if I would like to change the stroke, I'm going to click on the stroke, and you'll notice that that changes some options up at the top. You may not necessarily be able to see the stroke because of the bounding box that's going around my shape. So I'm going to go ahead and make the stroke a little bit thicker so that I can see it. And let's change the color on that too. Let's make that more of a yellow. Ooh, not pretty. Other places where you can change your colors are here you have your fill, here you have your stroke. So if I wanted to choose from one of the swatches that already exists, I can do that. Now, let's say, for example, I want to put a gradient in one of my shapes. So let's select this shape. And underneath, notice that my stroke is on top. I want to mess with the fill, so I'm going to click that so that it's on top. I have color, gradient, and none. When I click on the gradient, it's going to automatically fill in white to black. Now, if, for example, I did not want to do this, I could always do Control Z. Control Z is going to be your best friend. If you make a mistake, make sure that you hit Control and Z. That will undo anything you need to undo. Going back, let's go ahead in and put the gradient in again. Let's say, for example, I would like to change the colors. So I'll come over here. As soon as I click on gradient, it's going to open up my gradient window. To change the color, I'll click on this little slider right here. Notice you may run into this issue where you only have two colors that pop up, black and white. To fix that, we're going to go up to this little options here and click on it. Notice it says grayscale. We'll come down to CMYK. Click OK. Now I have all the colors I could possibly want. So let's go for a dark purple. And I can click off of that. Now I want to figure out what color I want the gradient to go to. I'll double click in here. Same thing. It's still going to be in grayscale. So I'll go up to this right-hand corner, come down to CMYK, and change up that color. So now that I have my colors chosen, I can do a couple of different things. I can change where the gradient color changes. I can change the midpoint by grabbing this point. I can also add a color. When I do that, you'll notice that my cursor has a plus sign that shows up when I'm right underneath of the gradient slider. If I do that and I double click in here, I can adjust any of these sliders to get a different shade. If I'm happy with what I have, I can do that. So if I'm done with the gradient, I can close that window. Last but not least, if I were to click off of this shape, you'll notice that there's a black line that goes around it. This is still my stroke. If I wanted to change that stroke, I could adjust the shape of the stroke. I could make it thicker again so I can see what the difference looks like. I can, oops, didn't have it selected. I can try a different one, or I can change the color. So if I wanted to make it red, I can change the color. Or if I don't want to stroke at all, if I come down here to stroke, remember we have color, gradient, and none. I can click none, and now my shape exists without a stroke at all. So these are the tools that we went over for your shape tool. I'd like you to understand all of these. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.